today we're gonna read The Magic Tree of Merlin Missions 3, Summer of the Sea Serpent. And today we're gonna start it at chapter 3, Cave of the Spider Queen. And today we're gonna start it at chapter 3 and then reading at chapter 5. Okay, now are you ready to read this one book with a lot of stories? And now here we go. And first you can read Magic Tree of Merlin Missions 3, Summer of the Sea Serpent. Chapter 3, Cave of the Spider Queen. Gentle waves rippled through the cove as Jack and Annie swam on the foot of the cliff. They pulled themselves into their boulders. Soaking wet, they sat for a moment in the warm sunlight and caught their breath. That was so cool, said Annie. Yeah, but why? Jack gasped. Why did he dump us way out here? What do we do now? Try to remind, said Annie. What happens after we call for the help of Water Knight? Jack reached into the pocket and pulled out the seashell. He read aloud, call for the help of the Water Knight, then passed through the cave of the Spider Queen. All right, said Annie. She took a deep breath. Spider Queen. Sorry, Jack said softly, but don't worry. Maybe the Spider Queen was just a person. Maybe a Spider Queen is her nickname. But what if she's a half person and a half spider? Said Annie. And like the Raven King was a half man, half a raven. Jack struggled into the memory of the monster on their last Merlin missions. Don't think about that, he said. Time is running out. Let's just find the cave. And Annie had nodded and smiled bravely. Okay, you're right, she said. They stood up and they started climbing to their barefoot around the craggy curves that base off into the cliff, and they ran it in the corner. They both gasped. In the front of them, the mouth of a cave. The mouth was covered with a thick, sticky white ropes. The ropes are woven tightly together in a circle-cross cobweb pattern. That's a spider web. We're in a big trouble, said Annie. Jack tried to sound calm. The size of the web doesn't actually tell us the size of the spider, he said. Plus, I once read there's no spider on the earth that's bigger than the dinner plate. Yeah, there's no horse on earth has a giant fish tail either, said Annie. Good point, thought Jack. Let's just concentrate on find a sword of light before nightfall, he said. Jack picked it off the stone sides of the softball. He hurried it down into the mouth of the cave. The stone sailed through the giant cobweb and into the cave, pulling a sticky rope that stands down with it. Jack turned to Annie. Ready, he said. And she didn't move. Jack shook her head. Don't worry. I won't let any monster spiders get you, he said. He nodded and through the mouth of the cave. Onward. Onward, Annie repeated in a small voice. And together, she and Jack stepped over the fallen wave with an entered cave of the Spider Queen and sent the cave the walls into the back and shiny. The ground was wet and slippery under their bare feet. Yikes, Annie says, jumping back. The pale pink crab curved sideways across the rocky floor. Don't be afraid, said Jack. There's not a spider. I know, said Annie. Sorry. And as they keep in this deeper and deeper into the cave, it grew darker and darker. Finally, Jack saw a faint light coming from the wide arch's passage. That way, he said. They stepped into the arch into the round chamber with a high ceiling. There was several of the large cracks in the ceiling that it had beams into the sunlight. The misty light shined in the mostly of the great ledges on the green, smoky-looking floor. Still their bullets dripped from above her, plopping into tiny pools. Squeakers and chirps came from the crannies and hiding places within the walls. "What's that noise?" said Annie. "Probably just a teeny cave crickets or baby bits," said Jack. "No, that noise," said Annie. "The whispering noise." Jack listened. Then he heard it, a low whispering. He couldn't make it up the words. It just sounded like a whisper, 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 whisper. The hair stood into the back of his neck. Now he began to feel scared. "This place is really creepy," said Annie. "No kidding," said Jack, "but he didn't have to stay here long. The map says we just have to pass through the cave, so let's hurry to pass through it." And Jack and Annie took the ghostly green light of the chamber, a spongy floor, squished beneath the bare feet as they came into the eye of the Spider Queen. "Hey, look at that starfish," said Annie. She pointed to the bright orange starfish clinging to the rocky ceiling. "How'd he get up there?" Before Jack could answer, a wave crashed into the chamber. The water splashed over Jack and Annie. "Yikes," said Annie, and then she and Jack jumped into the musty legend jutting out from the wall. The wave washed it back out. There was a moment of quiet. Then another wave scrubbed into the chamber. It just splashed against the cave walls, soaking to Jack and Annie again. "Oh man," said Jack, "the tide must be coming in. Soon this whole cave will be floated." And the wave receded. From a moment, all was quiet again. "We better leave now," said Jack. "Quick, go back to the way we came in." Jack and Annie jumped down from the ledge, but before could escape, another wave crashed into the cave. It would just swept them off to their feet and pulled them into the foamy water. Jack grabbed Annie's hand, fighting into the swirling current, and they climbed back up to the mossy ledge. The water curled and gurgled around the chamber. "We can't go back. We can't go back the way we came in," said Jack. "The wave will just keep knocking this down, and we'll caught into the current." "Maybe we can get out with that crack," said Annie. She pointed to the waist crack into the wave ceiling. It was just above the swirling water. "It's too high," said Jack. "We can't get up there." He looked frantically around the flooded cave, searching for another way out. Suddenly, a frozen in a horror, clinging to a ledge near ceiling cracks into the Spider Queen. And then she had 8 red glowing eyes. She had 8 long hairy legs, and she was much bigger than a dinner plate. The Spider Queen was bigger than Jack. Chapter 4, Web Walks. I think Jack and Annie met the Spider Queen, and they need to run away from the Spider Queen because Spider Queen is much bigger than Jack. That means they can't win with a Spider Queen because they're much bigger than Jack and Annie. But actually, some people think the the big people are much stronger than the little people, but it's not might be because Jack and Nanny are very strong too because they're master librarians. And now they were gonna rescue and do some lot of missions. So they need to fight with the Spider Queen. But the Spider Queen is very big, but they can do it. Jack grabbled in his hand. Whatever you do, don't look up, he said. Annie looked up. Ah, she screamed. She started to leap up to the ledge of the churning waters, but then another wave crashed into the wildly against the walls. Jack held Annie back. Don't jump, he shouted. You drown. Above the sound of the rushing waters, a loud whisper echoed around the cave. Stay. Stay, stay. The Spider Queen was just staring down at them with their 8 round red eyes. And Jack and Annie started back into the horror. The giant spider shot a web starting into the thick rope. Startled them, Jack and Annie ducked. The string stuck into the wall. What's she doing? She said. I don't know, said Jack. He and Annie looked at the back of the Spider Queen. She crayed for a few feet closer into the crack into the wall. And she stared down at them for a moment with a glowing eyes when they slipped out to under thick rope straight. Watch out, shouted Jack. He and Annie ducked. Straight, the second wave. Rope tucked out to the ledge, just in the flew away from the first. Oh no, look, shrieked Annie. She pointed up at the cave ceiling. A monster spider was zigzagging between the few of the two strands of their web. He was hitting the straight toward them, and Jack and Annie screamed and passed them, slipped against the wall. We have to leave, cried Annie. But before they could make a more move, other wave crashed into the cave. The water swirled into a freakiest force around the traveler. We can't leave, cried Jack. We can't stay, said Annie. Wait, whispered the Spider Queen. The giant spider keeps zigzagging between the two limbs, spinning more web, coming closer and closer to Jack and Annie. They watched into the horror, unbeatable to speak out to the move, but they just came to the close enough to touch them, and the Spider Queen turned into the circle back of the ceiling, leaving a giant wave ladder behind them. And the Spider Queen stared down at Jack and Annie with her 8 eyes. Climb, 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 she whispered from the spot of the ceiling. I think she wants to help us, said Jack. No, she wants to trap us, said Annie. The spider whispered again. Climb, climb, climb. Something about their voice made Jack feel certain of the Spider Queen wanted to help. She doesn't want to hurt us, he said. She wanted us to, and she wanted to help us escape. Besides, we don't have any choice. The water rising higher and higher over the ledge. It was swirling above their ankles. Now, we have to climb their web, said Jack. I will go first. He reached up and grabbed one of the spider ropes. It felt damp and sticky. He pulled himself into the bottom of the race into the wave ladder. Grab on, he shouted to Annie, and above the roll of the water. We have to get in the crack of the ceiling. Jack grabbed the 2 web ropes. Ah, she said, it's gross. Just climb, said Jack, holding tightly to the sticky chains. Jack and Annie began making their way up to the Spider Queen web ladder, and the web stayed into their chest, but it just stirred them enough to hold hold their weight, and the thickness came from the slipping and the falling, and crawled the climbing moved higher and higher above the chasing waters. They all drew the near of the crack into sailing. Jack kept an eye on the spider queen. She was watching them carefully. And finally, Jack retreated into the sailing crack. He swung into the one side of the red ladder, pulling himself between the Annie and giant spider. You go first, he said. Oh, I think Jack and Annie are climbing the spider web so they can escape into the little crack, and the spider queen is helping them, not hurting them. Okay, said Annie. She grabbed the rocky edge of the opening into the truck out of the crack. Now, nowhere go to but into there, just water, she crowed. How far down is it? Said Jack. Pretty far, said Annie, but I think we can make it. Wait, said Jack. But Annie was already squeezing herself through the crack.